Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course, Intermediate Course 1. If you'd like to see the rest of the lessons in this course, download the jam tracks, and download the corresponding e-guide which includes detailed charts and diagrams for each lesson, click the link on the screen or look in the description below. Welcome to Lesson 3. In this lesson, I'm going to explain what root notes are. I'm also going to explain what a slash chord is, as well as teach you 4 different slash chords. So I'm going to explain what root notes are. I'm just going to give a basic explanation because that's important. And it's important for everything you do in music, but it's important for right now when I'm going to talk about slash chords. So first I'll talk about root notes, then I'm going to explain slash chords, and then I'm going to teach you some slash chords that are really important, really common slash chords you'll run across all the time. So the root note, and when we're talking about root notes for chords right now. You have root notes for scales and arpeggios and other things as well, but for right now we're talking about chords. So a root note is the name of the chord. For example, if I play a G major chord, the root note of the G major chord is G. So the root note is the name of the chord. If I was to play an A minor chord, the root note is A. If I was to play C major, root note is C, E minor 7, root note is E. So that's all you really need to know for now, that the root note is the name of the chord. Meaning, if I was to play an A major, it's an A note, that's the root note. Or if I was to play an A minor, the root note is A still. So it's the name of the chord. A major, A minor, it doesn't matter. A would be the root note. And all the chords I've shown you so far in the beginner course have had the root notes as the lowest note in the chord. For example, this is a G major chord. Well, you should remember that the 3rd fret, 6th string, is a G note. So that means in this G major chord that I'm holding, this note right here, my lowest note, which is the note in the bass, is a G note. Or a C major chord. C is the root note. The lowest note that I'm holding is on the 5th string, 3rd fret. You should know that's a C note. So my root note is the lowest note in this chord. And you can have more than one root note in a chord, but for right now we're talking about the lowest root note. For example, this C major chord, I have a C right here as well, but I'm talking about the lowest note. So all the chords that I've shown you just have the root note as the lowest note. A slash chord is different. A slash chord has a note other than the root in the bass, or as the lowest note. And if you look in your e-guide, you can see slash chords written out. If you look at the first one, it says D slash F sharp. That means it's a D major chord with an F sharp in the bass instead of a D in the bass. For example, a D major chord is like this. You should know that chord. And the lowest note that you play is the open 4th string, which is a D note. So the lowest note was the root note. But a D slash F sharp puts an F sharp as the lowest note. So anytime you see a slash chord, the way you read it, the first letter written is the chord. So a D slash F sharp, the chord is a D chord, a D major chord. Then after the slash, the next letter written is the lowest note in that chord. So F sharp is the lowest note in the chord. Or if you look at the F slash C, which is written in your e-guide, F major is the chord, and then after that slash, the C, that's the lowest note in the chord. And you can see an F major chord written and play an F slash C, or a C major chord and play a C slash G. There's many times when that's totally fine, but there's also times when slash chords are very specific, and there's a reason that you're playing a slash chord. And I'm going to show you a progression where the slash chords are used that way to give you an example, but it can get more advanced than that. For right now, just know that anytime you see a slash chord, the first letter written is the chord, the second letter written is the lowest note in the chord. So now I'm going to go over these slash chords, and these are some of the most common ones you'll find, and that's why I'm showing you in this intermediate course. I'm trying to show you as many of the most common chords as I can think of, or that I think you'll run across the most often and find the most useful. And then if you really want to dive into other options for playing chords and just have a ton of different options, check out our course, Chords and Chord Progressions 1. That will really dive into different options you have for playing different chords and what are called different voicings or different extensions, and I'll really dive into it in that lesson. But these intermediate courses are more of a big overview, going to give you tons of tools that you can use and that you're going to use all the time. And then it's going to allow you at the end of the intermediate courses to go in any direction you want. You could go and learn more about chords, go learn more about soloing and whatever else that we've touched on in the intermediate courses. So the first chord is a D/F sharp. It's a really popular chord used all the time, and it's really simple if your hands are big enough to be able to fret a note with your thumb. So if you just play the regular D major chord, instead of starting your strum on the 4th string, which is your lowest note in the D major chord, which is a root note, you're going to wrap your thumb over on the 6th string 2nd fret, and as you remember, that's an F sharp note. It's an F sharp or a G flat, but for this purpose it's an F sharp. So if you can reach over, if your hands are big enough and it's not uncomfortable for you, you can actually fret that note with your thumb by reaching over the fretboard. If that's painful, if that does not feel comfortable, if your hands are really small, don't try it, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you another way you can play it, but this is the easiest way since you should already know a D major chord really well at this point. You just play D major chord, you wrap your thumb over, now you have a D/F sharp. And when you're holding this, if you can reach it, you can actually reach your thumb far enough over to mute out the 5th string because the 5th string's not in this chord. So if you can reach your thumb far enough over, just lightly touch the 5th string, that way you won't have to worry about it ringing out because it's not in this chord. You could leave it in this chord, but it gets a little muddy if you do, so it's best to try and leave to mute it out. And so the D/F sharp, if you hold it like that, you just strum through all the strings, and that's a D/F sharp. Now if that's uncomfortable for you and it's really hard to reach your thumb over, another way you can play it is to rearrange your fingers and play it like this. And that's still a D/F sharp. So now you're using your 1st finger on the 6th string 2nd fret, your 2nd finger on the 3rd string 2nd fret, your 4th finger on the 2nd string 3rd fret, and your 3rd finger on the 1st string 2nd fret. So that's another way you can play a D/F sharp. It's just that'll take you a little longer to learn probably because we never played the D with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. It's a little awkward. There's usually not a reason to do it unless you have to reach something with your 1st finger. The next chord is a G/F sharp, and this one is pretty easy. So if you just hold your regular G, remove your 1st and 2nd fingers, and now put your 1st finger on the 6th string 2nd fret. Now you have a G/F sharp. And with this one, you're going to mute out the 5th string with the back of your 1st finger. So that's a G/F sharp. Here's a G major. Remove those 2 fingers, use your 1st finger on the 6th string 2nd fret, because again, that's an F sharp note. Now you have a G/F sharp. So again, instead of the G being as the lowest note or the bass note in this chord, an F sharp is, which is why it's called a G/F sharp. And it's actually called a G5/F sharp, but you can call it either. You can use it either way. And we'll talk about a G5 chord in the next lesson. The next chord is an F/C. So now we just have an F chord. You have your regular F major chord. But instead of the F being the lowest note, which I didn't teach you this note, it doesn't matter for right now, that's an F, that's your root note, it's the lowest note. We're going to put a C as the lowest note. So it's actually a fuller sounding chord because you're adding in a note. So you're still playing all the same notes that you did with the regular F chord, but now you're adding in the low note as a C. So the way you would fret it, you have to change up your fingers a little bit. Your 3rd finger is going to change up, and you're going to have to use your 4th finger as well. You're going to put your 3rd finger on the 5th string 3rd fret, your 4th finger on the 4th string 3rd fret, your 2nd finger on the 3rd string 2nd fret, and then again your 1st finger is still just barring the 2nd and 1st string in the 1st fret, just like the regular F major chord. And then you're muting out the 6th string. If your hands are big enough, you can reach up with your thumb and do that, or you can just do it with the tip of your 3rd finger. So it's just like an F major chord, but then you move your 3rd finger up towards the ceiling to the 5th string and add in your 4th finger where your 3rd finger normally is. So that's an F/C because now you have a C note as your lowest note in the chord. And the last chord is a C/G, so I'm sure you can figure it out. It's just a C major chord with a G as the bass instead of a C. And it has a fuller sound because of that with this voicing. So here's a regular C major chord that you know. Take your 3rd finger off, move it up towards the ceiling to the 6th string in the same fret, so in the 3rd fret, and put your fourth finger where your third finger was. And strum through all the strings. So now you have a G as the lowest note instead of a C as the lowest note. So it's your third finger, 6th string, 3rd fret, your fourth finger, 5th string, 3rd fret, your second finger, 4th string, 2nd fret, and your first finger, 2nd string, 1st fret. And then the 3rd and 1st string are still open just like regular. And you can see that has a fuller sound because of that G added in as the lowest note. So those are really common slash chords you'll run across all the time, and you may end up liking this, for example, this C/G more than a regular C because it's fuller sounding over this regular C, and use that more often. Like I said, it doesn't have to say C/G to play it. There are times when it specifically needs that for a musical situation, but if you see a regular C, you can play a C/G instead. Or if you see a regular F major, you can play an F/C instead. So for practice, do the same thing that we've done with all the chords that we've gone over in the beginner courses. Just hold the chord, strum through, check each string. If you hear anything muted, buzzing, sounding funny, go through, adjust your fingers over and over until you can get everything to ring out clearly. And you should know the drill by now. We've done it so many times. And just keep working on each chord one at a time until you have them down. Then go ahead and move on to the next lesson once you have all these chords down, and we'll keep moving forward.